Welcome to the Crosscreek On Demand podcast, a podcast for you because God is for you. Today we're starting a new and important series called Becoming the Church People Actually Need. See, over the past few months, our team has wrestled with some hard questions about church, about calling, and honestly, whether it's all still worth it. And this first episode is called You Don't Have to Be Impressive, Just Present. Because maybe you felt what we've felt, tired, discouraged, and wondering if what you're doing really matters. If that's you, you're not alone. There's space for you here. So let's talk about it together. So let me start by asking you a question. When have you ever quit something? What happened? What was it like? How did it feel during deciding to quit? And then how did it feel after you quit? A few months ago, the leadership team of Crosscreek started a conversation about quitting. Should Crosscreek keep going? Is it worth it? We're tired, but we're not just tired. We're like soul tired, you know? We started Crosscreek because we firmly believed a community like this is desperately needed in Salem. A community specifically designed from the ground up for people who don't normally go to church. A group of people who accept you no matter where you come from, what you've done, how you look, how you vote, anything. And as we started the church, it was clear that this vision was from God. Like money just came in right when it was needed. People came and caught the vision and jumped on board. We grew from 20 people to over 100. And then COVID hit. And so we halted our in-person gatherings while keeping our teaching and our groups online. But people disagreed with that. Some of our core volunteers and core givers wanted us open. But we refused to jump on either political bandwagon. And so people went to other places that agreed more with their views. In fact, 80% of our kids ministry volunteers left. And rule number one of trying to grow a church is you need a kids ministry. And so our numbers dropped. We had dreamed of having our own space, maybe even starting a church planting network of churches like ours, having a kids ministry where kids begged to come back every week. And instead, right now, we don't even have an office. We have one staff member, me, and our June attendance this year was 1 week we had 14 people. 2 other weeks we had 18 people. 6.5 of our original 20 people are still here. There's a few people doing a lot of the work. And those huge dreams, well, at least my huge dreams, now kind of feel like distant, fleeting wishes. And so Crosscreek has been through some stuff. But maybe you've felt some similar disappointments too. Maybe you're wondering, like, why are we still doing this? Why do we keep showing up? Or maybe, and most likely, your stuff has nothing to do with church. Maybe your life hasn't turned out how you planned. Maybe you feel like no matter how hard you try, you keep hitting wall after wall. And your hopes and dreams have turned into if-onlys. So by typical church standards, Crosscreek could be seen as a failure. But what if those aren't the standards that matter? See, I want to invite all of us to consider, what if faithfulness isn't measured by numbers, but by courage, by constancy, by refusing to quit when the story gets hard? In fact, what if unmet expectations free us to discover something better? Now, what's encouraging is this is nothing new for God. In fact, this isn't his first rodeo. He knows we expect our stories to work out a certain way, with a certain timeline, and when things don't work, well, we usually don't take it very well. We even have a story of him dealing with someone in this situation from around 860 BC. Elijah, a man God used powerfully. He hit a point where it felt like everything he'd given his life to was collapsing. His expectations didn't just pan out, they were shattered. So he ran, and he hid, and he asked God if it was time to quit. But not just quit, die. He was pretty dramatic. And God shows him. He says, you haven't failed. You just need to rest and show up. And what we're learning through tears and prayer and exhaustion is this. We don't have to chase fire from heaven. We need to rest, listen for the whisper, and keep loving. See, that's what God showed Elijah, and it's what we believe God's showing us. And when we pick up his story, Elijah's just had a big showdown with the evil King Ahab and his wife Jezebel and 850 idol-worshipping prophets. And he's called down fire from heaven to burn up his sacrifice, and then he slaughtered all these false prophets. But Jezebel now vows to kill him, so he runs for his life. 1 Kings chapter 19. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life, for I'm no better than my ancestors who have already died." I know, it sounds dramatic, but think about it. We've all been there. See, he had risked everything. And he thought the fire from heaven would fix everything, that people would finally repent, that Jezebel would back down, that the kingdom of Israel would be saved, that things would finally turn around. But instead, all he got was a death threat. He's alone, he's exhausted, he's disillusioned, he's asking, what more could I possibly do? He's not just tired, he's done. He's disappointed with his life, and he's disappointed with God. And I think that's somewhere almost all of us have been. See, life seems to be going well, right? You experience some success, and then wham! You get smacked in the face with bad news. Someone's screwed up, and it affects you. Or maybe there's some relationship turmoil. I know I've been there often. Like, I have a great week. The family's happy. I'm excited about maybe some new ideas we're doing. We have an amazing Sunday gathering. And then I open my email Sunday night and see an email in my inbox from a family telling me they're mad and they're leaving. Which, FYI, is why I don't check my emails on Sunday night anymore. See, it's almost like the highs make the lows feel even lower. We climbed this mountain only to fall into a deep valley. And in those times we ask, is this even worth it? Like, if I had just stayed off the mountain, I wouldn't have fallen so far. Things aren't shaping up how we expected, so we're ready to give up, throw it away, and find an easier path. But when we hit those times, we can actually follow Elijah's example. See, God doesn't want us to pretend everything's okay and pretend we have it all together and just power through. He wants us to name our pain, acknowledge our hurt, and bring them to Him. And that's what the leadership team decided to do. We named our hurt, the frustration, the fear, and took a month to pray about it on our own. And what He showed us is very similar to what He showed Elijah. Then he lay down and slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again and touched him and said, "Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave where he spent the night. See, sometimes all we need is a nap and a snack. We treat ourselves and our lives like machines that just keep running and grinding until they ultimately break. And we do it with churches too. We got to keep the machine going. Every week, there's another Sunday, another service. We got to make it as good as we can to get more volunteers and dollars so we can keep doing these services, right? But what if enjoying God and the life He offers isn't about grinding a machine, but resting at a table? What if we aren't made to work until we drop, but designed for a slower rhythm that actually allows us to enjoy the life we've been given? I mean, think that's what Jesus did. When He was exhausted, when He was misunderstood or facing betrayal, He withdrew. The accounts of His life show Him constantly retreating to lonely places, not to avoid people, but to be with the Father. See, Jesus didn't push through burnout. He trusted the Father's pace, not people's pressure. So He napped in a boat. He ate with His friends. He walked away from the crowds. He trusted that love doesn't require hurry. And if Jesus did that, why shouldn't we? And so when the leadership team came back from our month of prayer, we had taken a breath. We'd been honest with God. And we really felt God was telling us to enjoy more naps and snacks. So we've decided to intentionally and consistently stop and remember, Crosscreek is not a machine to keep feeding. It's a table to rest around. And so we're going to take regular breaks, usually corresponding to holidays, where we don't meet and we don't do a service project. We just rest. We give our volunteers and our staff a chance to nap and snack. And when we do, I think we'll see we're recharged and have the energy for the journey ahead, just like Elijah was ready to walk for 40 days to finally hear what he needed from God. But that intentional rest will make us look different from what other people might expect a church to look like. And it'll force us to discover God in a different way than we've been told, quote unquote, works, just like it did for Elijah. But the Lord said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah replied, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire there was the sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And a voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Now, Elijah had already seen God show up, literally with fire from heaven. And so I'm guessing that's probably what he expected again. But this time, fire isn't how God speaks. The mountain rumbles, the earth shakes, the wind screams, but none of it is God, which must have been confusing. And I think we've all been there, right? We expect God to show up one way, and then he doesn't. We expect God to show up in a big way, a mighty rushing wind over our community, the earth shaking and experiencing dramatic shifts in thinking and lives. We picture fire falling, blazing across the sky, evidence of God's power. But more often, he moves in ways that are quieter, slower, more ordinary. See, we usually find God showing up in the mundane, simple parts of everyday life. So, as leadership, we've stopped chasing big. We've stopped chasing impressive. We let go of the dream, and yeah, maybe it was just my dream, of big stages and polished performances. Not because they're wrong, but because they're just not us. We are who God has made us. And if we stay small, we'll enjoy the quiet simplicity and be faithful. And if more people come, we will still purposely practice quiet simplicity while enjoying each other and Jesus. See, Jesus never chased crowds. He never looked for fire from heaven at the expense of the moment in front of him. He washed feet. He didn't try to be influential. He shared meals. And on the cross, when it looked like the story was over, he proved there's more. Jesus didn't rise from the grave to create a franchise. He rose to form a community and a family. And that's us. That's what we're becoming. And Elijah had to accept that even if it didn't look like he expected, God still had a plan for him. So in that quiet whisper, God tells Elijah it's not time to give up. There's still more in store for him. He replied again, "I have zealously served the Lord Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." Then the Lord told him, "Go back the same way you came, and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be king of Aram. Then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, to be king of Israel. And anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from the town of Abel-Melahah, to replace you as my prophet. Anyone who escapes Hazael will be killed by Jehu, and those who escape Jehu will be killed by Elisha. Yet I will preserve 7,000 others in Israel who have never bowed down to Baal or kissed him." Elijah thought his story was over. But God said there's more to do, and people you haven't even met yet who are part of it. More help, more work, more story. Elijah thought he was the last, but there are 7,000 more quietly waiting to play their part. And so maybe that's where we are too. Maybe Crosscreek isn't running out of story. Maybe we're just getting ready for the next chapter. Maybe this isn't the end of the story, but the end of the beginning of the story. So what are we becoming now? Well, I don't know, but I do know we're becoming a community that doesn't hustle to impress, but quietly shows up to heal. We're becoming real life companions more than religious consumers. We're becoming the kind of church that doesn't measure itself by parking lots and platforms, but by presence, honesty, trust, and shared tables. See, we're no longer focused on how we're perceived. We're focused on who we're inviting to the table. Because, honestly, there's nothing like this in Salem. And people aren't just hungry for truth. They're starving for real connection. And we've been through enough to know that's exactly what we can offer. So what can we do now? What can you do now? Well, we can rest and show up. So this week, pick one day or even just a morning or evening to stop. No hustling, no checking off boxes, just rest. Sleep in. Go for a walk. Turn off your phone. Eat something slowly and gratefully. Make a really good drink and enjoy it. And as you rest, simply pray, God, meet me in the quiet. Help me hear your whisper. But we can't just let this become all rest and no action. See, this resting is designed to re-energize us for our role. So rest and then show up. And you might not think that you showing up, whether it's in someone's life or even to a Crosscreek gathering, matters, but it does. See, when you walk in the door, when you pour a cup of coffee for someone new, when you set up or even clean up, when you participate in our discussions or simply sit near someone, you're creating a table for people to discover true love. Your quiet faithfulness might be the whisper someone else has been praying for. So let's rest without guilt, show up without pressure, and offer people not perfection, but presence. And maybe someone in your neighborhood, at your work, in your circle, is bone tired too. Maybe they've given up on church. Maybe they've been waiting for an invitation not to sit in a pew, but to share a table. You might be the whisper they need to hear. So listen, we're not done. We're being reformed. And the next chapter is about making space at the table, in our homes, and with Jesus. And me personally, I'm done worrying about where we're going. I'm focusing on how we're going. That's what makes us Crosscreek. Because we aren't done. And yeah, maybe we're still tired. But instead of trying harder, we'll rest better. We'll move slower. We'll live deeper. And we'll keep showing up. Jesus is still the whisper in the quiet. And he's still calling friends to tables instead of platforms. Followers instead of fans. And companions instead of consumers. And whether someone's been hurt by the church, been told they don't fit, been rejected or pushed out, or never been invited, whether they've been burned out or just looking for something more, we are here. God is here. We'll listen for the whisper, and we'll keep making room for the ones still waiting to hear it. We don't need fire from heaven. We need a whisper in the quiet and the courage to keep loving.